It's power play time here at the One-on-One Sports Webcast, as I'm joined by Hannah Ito and Elizabeth Benjamin to talk hockey. Ladies, there's a growing trend in player injuries due to illegal hits from other players. The latest example came Wednesday night when John Scott of the Buffalo Sabres hit Boston Bruins winger Louis Eriksson in the head, well after Eriksson passed the puck, causing a concussion. Eriksson is out indefinitely. In this case, the NHL suspended Scott indefinitely, with a hearing to be held soon to determine how many games Scott will be forced to miss. If you were Brendan Shanahan, Director of Player Safety, how long would you suspend John Scott for, Hannah?
I would definitely have to say 15 to 20 games. That was an unacceptable hit. You could ask anyone, Bruins or Sabres fan, that was just sloppy. It was unprofessional. The Sabres are already having a really tough slump this season, and I definitely think that having a player like John Scott do something like that just makes the Sabres look more like a joke. It was said by many different people who have different hockey opinions that that's unacceptable. Like, it was clear after he passed, and I understand you're down by 2 goals, this is like a rivalry team, but focus more on where the puck's going, not hitting like a player that had already passed it. I definitely think that this is not the first time this has happened with John Scott. Preseason with Phil Kessel, I understand that Kessel got suspended for slashing, but still, John Scott he's a hothead, that's what he is, and I definitely think that it's extremely dangerous that he did that, and he didn't realize how violent it was. So a good amount of games for sure.
I agree. I would be more harsh actually and say at least till the All-Star game, because this isn't his first offense. They need to really show that this is not okay, especially like when blindside hits are being more and more of an issue. And also, this isn't the first time he's concussed somebody. Like, even though last season against Sean Thornton, he threw some punches to concuss him, he was still out with a concussion, so it's not okay for the enforcers.
Many injuries from illegal hits in the past few years have been caused by these enforcer-type players. Should there still be a role for enforcers in today's NHL, Elizabeth?
I don't really think so. There's what they do, many skilled position players can do. For example, Gordie Howe. The Gordie Howe hat trick is a goal, an assist, and a fight, and that's becoming more and more common in today's game as well. So if players with talent can actually fight and do the job of an enforcer, there's not really a need for them.
I'm going to actually have to disagree on this one. I'm going to say that I think there should be a boundary between the role of enforcers. I think the fighting, yes, that's very dangerous, but I mean, looking back at the thrill, fighting's part of the thrill of hockey. People love those hits, they love sitting there, whether it's TV or in the arena, but I definitely think there needs to be a certain boundary of the role of enforcers. And I think what the main problem has been is the fact that you have hotheads like John Scott, Patrick Coletta, who come in here and really question the role of an enforcer, because enforcers are not supposed to make sloppy hits. They have a big role knowing that they're supposed to have these fights, defend, but I think that there just needs to be a boundary of who's an enforcer on a team. I think that, yes, enforcers are in charge of fighting, starting this and that, but they're also serving a very good value for being kind of the big guy of the team. I mean, for example, after Eriksson was hit like that, McQuaid stepped in against John Scott. I think it's definitely stepped up to the plate, and I would kind of disagree with unskilled players being enforcers. I think that they serve a very big role as being enforcers. And lastly, my last comment on that is also, it just shows a lot of that people have respect for their team by stepping in and fighting. And I definitely think that there needs to be a boundary between how you act as an enforcer, but for the most part, if it gets cleaned up, I think they should definitely stay in the NHL.
People watch hockey for those fights, so it's a really tough spot for the NHL to be in. But Hannah, if you were NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman, how would you deal with the growing trend in illegal hits causing concussions?
I would definitely, if we went back to the first question, agree with what Elizabeth said. For example, players like John Scott, not the first offense. So I would definitely look harder into these people that have been called for more offenses. Looking definitely into John Scott, not just give him a suspension, but look into the past that he's caused stuff like this. Another thing is definitely enforcing harsher suspensions. I think that people don't really realize the impact of these concussions. I mean, you never know. I mean, Lou Eriksson could have been fine, or any other player that had a concussion. Even when Marian Hossa got hit by Rafi Torres, you never know exactly. But I definitely think that enforcing harsher suspensions will show that this is not just anything that's happening. It's a really big issue in the NHL.
That is very true. In agreement with you, Hannah. In fact, Rule 48 in the NHL rulebook says that it's illegal for checks to the head, where a hit resulting in contact with an opponent's head where it's targeted and the principal point of contact is not permitted. But in the rule book, it only gives you a minor penalty and a match penalty, which means you're ejected and then 5 minutes of shorthanded. But that's only one game. You're not ejected for the rest of the series, maybe, or for however much longer. So it should definitely be looked at.
Absolutely. These concussions are a major problem in sports today. Hockey is no exception in that regard. That's all for this edition of the One-on-One Sports Webcast. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Until next time, I'm Matt Krause saying, whose side are you on?